Hey, what's up everybody? It's your mortgage expert, Brian McCauley here. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the current state of the housing market. We're going to discuss why prices are still rising, what are all the good surprises that we discovered so far this year, what's all the conflicting info out there as well, and what should you actually do. Stick around and let's get into it. So listen, the housing market is much stronger right now than we anticipated. Why? Well, there are a bunch of different reasons and things that I want to discuss today, but the first thing I want to talk about is how come prices on homes are still rising even though the interest rates are hanging somewhere around 7%. So to get into that, there are a few things that we want to pay attention to that I don't think will change in the future, and I want you to be aware of out there as a potential homeowner. Number one is inventory. There is just a massive shortage of inventory nationally. Now, a lot of this changes nationally versus regionally, but overall, there's still just a lot more people than there are houses. And so anytime you have a supply shortage, you're obviously going to see an increase in demand, which ultimately has an increase in prices. And so what we've seen is people just kind of settle with the idea that they're tired of burning money on rent. I'm going to talk about that at the very end, so stick around for that. But they ultimately understand that home prices are not going to go down. Historically, they go up over time. So a lot of people have settled with the fact that, hey, an interest rate somewhere around high sixes, low sevens is fine with them temporarily, and they're going to look at refinancing later. But with the demand of homes and the shortage of inventory, we have seen things continuously rise. Now, I will tell you from a consumer strictly standpoint, there are three major topics that everyone is concerned about and everyone is paying the most attention to. So number one is affordability. Everybody wants to figure out how are home prices continuing to rise. How can I pay top dollar for a house? But in conjunction with that, how do I pay top dollar for a house with a higher mortgage rate, which equals a higher payment? And how can I afford it? So everyone's trying to figure out how to crack the code, because with prices higher and interest rates higher, it makes it harder to afford. So first things first, when it comes to affordability, I tell everybody when you're buying a house, you need to pay attention to two other things. Your overall budget. So people really get hung up on what is the interest rate, what is the mortgage payment. That is important. What I will tell you is the way for people to create wealth is to eliminate debt and increase cash flow. And I will tell you there's good debt and bad debt. So if you're a current homeowner out there, you're thinking about buying a house, paying attention to the mortgage payment obviously is important from an affordability standpoint, but I would reverse engineer and say, hey, are there any other debts out there that I have that maybe while I can lower the interest rate and the payment, which I'll talk about in just a sec, is there any other miscellaneous expense, miscellaneous debt, or miscellaneous money that I could, basically cut out elsewhere to help subsidize and compensate for a higher mortgage payment for the time being? If you've got a $5,000 credit card with a $150 payment, maybe spend money paying that off than putting it to the down payment on the house. If you've got a car note where the car note might be $20,000 left on the note, let's say the monthly payment is $500, I may consider paying off the car and using $20,000 to do that versus putting it into the house. Again, think about it like highest and best use of the money. $20,000 car, $500 payment. $5,000 credit card, $100 payment. That would cost you $25,000, but ultimately you would relieve $600 a month in debt. Where if you put that same $25,000 into the down payment of the house, it wouldn't move the needle that much on the monthly payment from an affordability standpoint, and you would still have this other debt over here, so the total combined debt would still be worse. So strategically, there are a couple things to do when it comes to overall big picture of buying a house versus just hyper-focusing on the affordability specific to the mortgage rate and the mortgage payment. Part two of the affordability piece is, I've probably been saying this for the last year, and I'm probably going to say it for at least another year, to the consumer out there, temporary interest rate buy downs are the fastest, easiest, and best relief point to get your interest rate and your monthly payment much, much lower than what the current market is offering right now. A lot of people's inclination when they go to make an offer on a house, we'll just use $400,000 for example. If they think they can get $20,000 off the house, they will just say, hey, instead of offering $400, I'm going to offer you $380. Well, the problem is that when you take that $20,000 and you spread it over a 30-year term, it doesn't move the needle a whole lot on the payment, especially if you're stuck with a 7% interest rate. What you should do is do a temporary buy down. Instead of offering $380 on the house, you should offer $400,000 the list price, ask for a $20,000 seller closing cost credit, and use use that money to buy down the interest rate 2 or 3%, driving that payment and that rate much further down than if you take it off the price of the house. And you can get the interest rate obviously down in the 6s, the 5s, sometimes even the 4s, and that can last 2 or 3 years, and that will be plenty of time, right? Should be plenty of time to have much cheaper payments and a much cheaper rate short term over the next few years until the refinance boom hits. And then of course you can refinance out of that temporary interest rate into a permanent interest rate that's much, much lower for the life of the loan. And that way the affordability component is going to be much easier for you, both short term and long term. Let's talk about the second piece. So we had affordability 1. Number 2 is stability. People are concerned, hey, if I buy a house right now, is it a good investment? Is the market stable? Am I going to lose money on the house? Is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? So that is another piece where if people can afford it or strategically find a way to make an offer on a house and they're okay with the payment, they're okay with the price for the time being, you know, buying a home is one of the best ways to create wealth. Very much like the stock market, historically, homes go up in value over time. A good average is probably 5 to 6% a year. Now, yes, there are small corrections in the market, but again, if you looked at a 25-year chart, you would see the trend overall for property appreciation goes up. I would say probably 20 to 22 out of those 25 years. So it's always a good investment. It's always going to go up, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little bit less, but it is an appreciating asset and always a good investment. But people are concerned right now, man, you know, with just inflation being out there and things just seem kind of unstable. The last thing that I want to do is buy a house and then the market crash and then I lose my down payment and be upside down on my house. So one of the best ways to leverage inflation is to invest your money and hedge your money into an asset that inflation benefits. Meaning, as inflation obviously goes up, the cost of everything goes up, and that includes houses. So if you buy a house at $400,000 today, it appreciates on average at 5% a year. That would be a natural increase of about $20,000 a year. So if you keep that house for 5 years, you would make $100,000 on the equity, and that's pretty good return on your investment. But the stability of that is going to stay strong for 2 reasons. One, if you're buying in the state of Texas in one of the big cities, you have to remember, again, real estate is local. And so some parts of the country and some cities are much stronger than the others based on economic demand, political views, climate, business laws, people, fill in the blank. Texas is a really good place. It's probably one of the top 3 states in the country, which is why you've got a lot of companies, you've got a lot of individuals that are investing in the state and these cities. So from a stability standpoint, I personally don't see any signs of a correction. I don't see signs of anything going down dramatically, if any. We all thought that was going to happen last year, and it didn't. There was a small correction, it's already done, and things are kind of already on the way up. So I personally think a stability component of it is going to be fine. Remember, as interest rates drop, and I think they will drop for good, and to their bottom probably sometime in late 25, but between now and then you may see some level out on rates. You may see them kind of tinker up and down, which they've been doing for the past 6 months, but ultimately rates follow inflation and they will come down. And remember, as interest rates come down, as a homeowner, 2 things happen. Number 1, as rates come down, demand for non-homeowners goes up because people think, hey, the rates are now where I can afford the payment, so I want to go buy a house. And the problem is you get all this demand coming off the sideline at one time, then it continues to push the home prices up. So if you already own a home, that's a great thing for you because not only will your natural appreciation be there, but that market demand will probably push it up. And the rule of thumb, just so you know from a stability standpoint, is for every 1% that interest rates drop, it increases the value of the house by about 5%. So if your natural appreciation every year is 5%, interest rates drop 1% next year, that's going to boost it another 5%. So you're looking at about a 10% increase in the value. So that $400,000 house in 24 months is probably going to go up 5-6% over the next 12 months, but as rates drop, it's going to go up another 5, which puts you obviously at a price point of maybe $440, $450 now. So the stability piece, in my opinion, is there. Remember, the secret to real estate is not wait to buy. It is buy and wait. I currently own 5 properties. I've had all of them for anywhere probably 2 to 3 years to 8 years. They've all gone up in value. They've all been a great investment. Again, similar to the stock market, it's unless you're an investor or a flipper or there's some type of hardship, real estate is made long term. Now, long term doesn't have to mean 10 years. You can still make money in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but I believe the stability component of investing in a property now is good. One, I don't think they're going to go anywhere probably for the next 24 to 36 months, but 2, again, population growth here in Dallas, specifically in Texas, but also as interest rates start to decline and come down, you will see the demand for wanting to buy a house go up, up, up. up. And obviously what that will do is if you're in a property right now, that value of the home will continue to increase. And for you, that just makes you more money, which obviously is a really good return on investment, makes it a stable investment and smart to buy. Let's talk about the third component that everyone's paying attention to right now, which is competition. So you got affordability 1, stability 2, number 3 is competition. So people are kind of back and forth on, hey, who am I competing against? Who would I be competing against in the future? Is now the right time to do it? So I will tell you specifically in Dallas, it is more competitive than not. I think the biggest thing about the competition in Dallas comes to really a few things. One, what is the price point? When you are looking at homes anywhere between, I'll say, the $300,000 and $550,000 range, it is barely slowed at all. There are a lot more people looking in that price range than any other price range, and so the competition is stiff. There's just not enough inventory for those people. And so you can imagine when rates drop 1% or 2%, what it's gonna do to the price of those homes, but there's gonna be a lot more people trying to get those same properties. People say, Brian, why that price range, 3 to 550 to 6? Well, just from a median income bracket in the United States, I think single Texas and Dallas is probably like 70, and I think household income was like 140 or 150. So what you've got is majority of people in that income bracket can afford to buy a home in that price range from 3 to 6. So you've got 80% of the income median earners all buying in this one pocket. And so you've got way more people that have that income than houses available. So you're seeing a ton of competition and a ton of demand in that price point. I think when you get to the second tier, which is probably the 550 to 6, all the way up to maybe 900,000 plus, you still got a lot of competition, but there's not quite as many wage earners that make in that $250 plus that are able to afford that $600,000 to $900,000 house. So there is still a healthy amount of competition on the second tier. What you're seeing is it might not be a matter of days going off the market, it might be a matter of weeks, but that second tier still falls into the category of a lot of people in Dallas and in Texas that make that kind of income. And so you don't see a shortage, you see a surplus of people, but a shortage of houses. And so they don't go quite as quick as that bottom income bracket, but they're going pretty quick on the middle. And so you're still up against a pretty healthy amount of people, which is good for the market, not necessarily great for the potential buyer, but those price points are gettable. The ability to get a deal is there. It's just a matter of structuring and timing based on what else is available in the neighborhood and that price point in that area. Last but not least on competition is the third tier, what I call the high level tier. So any house that's probably $1 million plus. Those are luxury homes, those are luxury buyers. The competition on those isn't as strong, obviously, is the lower end income, the middle income, and the high income, because there's a lot more people that can buy in those tiers than the high end. But I will tell you, $1 million home is not what it used to be. Meaning, in order to afford a 7-figure home, you have to be a pretty strong income earner, and most people don't earn enough money to just be able to look at $1 million house all day, every day. And so the competition on the 7-figure luxury homes is still there. It's just not as bad as it would be on the lower price points. Now, I will tell you firsthand, depending upon the area that people are in, depending upon the specifics with like school zones and traffic and all these type of things, I've still seen multiple offers on 7-figure properties. Now, there's a big gap between $1 million 7-figure home and a $2 million home. When you get to the million, probably all the way even up to like the 1.5, 1.6, you still have a good healthy amount of people, especially in Dallas, that are good income earners that can still kind of buy right to the million or slightly over. Once you get at 1.5 and over, 2 and over, it really shrinks down the competition, because obviously there's not 50 different people that make that kind of income that are really trying to chomp at the bit to get that house. But I have still seen healthy competition on the 7-figure houses on the luxury market. That's $1 million plus. It all just depends on, really, again, specific to the area, what's there, what's available, how long the other properties have been sitting on the market, and how well you can structure that. So, to kind of tie all this together, the state of the housing market is still very healthy. I think that's a great thing, even though from a consumer standpoint, you might think, man, things are expensive. Well, the latter could be that, what if the market crashed by 20%? We would probably like it as a consumer, but we wouldn't like it if we were owners. We wouldn't like it if we were in the area, because obviously any equity and money that we had into it or we have earned has gone backwards. And so So I think people need to understand that this is a good thing. The question becomes, if the housing market continues to trend in this direction, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, what will the affordability look like? Is it going to be a stable buy at that point in time, especially if interest rates go down? Because obviously people are trying to conserve as much money as possible, but they'll be paying a little bit on a higher price. And the last one is competition. Take yourself into the future. Think about the state of the healthy housing market right now. Fast forward a year from now, or actually fast forward in time and say, hey, if interest rates were 1% lower right now, what does the market look like? How many people are trying to get offers on homes? How chaotic is it in the street? What is it doing to the price points of the house? How much is it increasing? Can I get any closing costs paid for? Can I get any seller concessions? Can I get any repairs? All of these things. And then move that thought one more step down the path, which is when interest rates are 2% lower, what does the market look like then? I think this will really set the tone for the consumer on the outside in, which is understanding short-term and long-term. I think it's a big key component when you're buying a house not to just pay attention to the rate and the payments from an affordability standpoint, but look at it full circle of investment, competition, timeline. What would interest rates do if they went down a year from now, 2 years from now, 1%, 2%? Is it going to be cheaper on you? Is it going to be easier on you? I don't think so. Remember, you can always take a property right now at face value, take an interest rate of 7% or whatever it is, and then when interest rates get to the bottom, whether it's 1% cheaper or 2% cheaper, you can always refinance. You've probably heard me say this before, but it's marry the house, date the rate. I say all that because you can always turn the rate in and exchange it when the refi boom happens, but it's much harder to do it on a house. Plus, a year from now, 2 years from now, when interest rates are hopefully 2% cheaper, you can refinance, but the demand of the consumer to buy houses when they're at 5% versus 7 is going to be through the roof. So it's going to push the value of your house up dramatically, which means you, as the owner, has made a lot of money during that time as interest rates drop. So it might be smarter to buy now and refi later, because I personally don't see the state of the housing market going backwards anytime soon. So listen, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, or share with anybody that you know that could benefit from this information. And if you want to have a conversation around the state of the housing market, your future, a pre-approval, or just anything financial at all, do us a favor, call us, email us, text us. We're always here to help. Until next time, stay tuned.